¿Por qué Estados Unidos mira a la Argentina para potenciar la industria Agtech? Otro muy buen panel que tenemos en esta mañana. Convocamos a Jorge Suino, director de Ingeniería y cofundador de Synmatrix, para presentar la siguiente temática. Jorge. Aplausos para Jorge.
Hola. Hola. Hola, bueno. ¿Se escucha bien?
Sí.
Salgo bien, bien. Presentar a Stephanie, que es la próxima oradora, me involucra personalmente porque es mi amiga, es amiga de mi familia y le debemos mucho desde Synmatrix, la empresa donde yo estoy, desde el ecosistema de Río Cuarto. Stephanie, hoy en su segunda visita a Río Cuarto, el año pasado, justo en esta misma fecha, estuvo por acá. Bueno, ella nos va a comentar cómo se ve Río Cuarto desde Estados Unidos. Nosotros siempre hemos mirado desde acá a Saint Louis, el ecosistema de donde ella está y donde es protagonista. Hemos mirado nosotros hacia allá, buscando la posibilidad de globalizar nuestra empresa, de acceder a ese gran mercado, y Saint Louis era una puerta importante por el peso que tiene como centro de desarrollo Agtech y por la forma en que está organizado el ecosistema que permite que fácil y rápidamente se pueda integrar una empresa. Quizás para responder la pregunta o volver a eso que decía Alejandro de que había que disfrazar la empresa para que no parezca argentina, quizás hoy está empezando a ocurrir todo lo contrario. Y eso es lo que nos va a comentar Stephanie, a quien yo defino como una soñadora y una hacedora. Es una combinación que hace de que las cosas se puedan soñar y hacer posibles. Y eso hace Stephanie en el ecosistema de San Luis y eso nos está ayudando también a hacer a nosotros. Así que bueno, le doy una cálida bienvenida a Stephanie, les pido un aplauso para ella.
Gran aplauso para Stephanie Regagnon, es directora ejecutiva de The Yield Lab Institute, una organización global sin fines de lucro dedicada a acelerar la comercialización de innovaciones agrotecnológicas revolucionarias y a construir ecosistemas conectados para impulsar la agricultura sostenible. Bajo su liderazgo, el instituto está trazando un rumbo innovador, fomentando la colaboración internacional y catalizando tecnología que aborde los desafíos urgentes de la resiliencia climática y la seguridad alimentaria.
Muchas gracias, and muchas gracias, Jorge. I am so happy to be here, and lo siento por mi español. I do not speak Spanish. And after having been here for the second time this week, I realize once again how important it is that I learn Spanish. So I would like to commit to you all that I'm going to do that. Like I said, I am so happy to be here. My name is Stephanie Regagnon. I'm here representing the Yield Lab Institute from St. Louis, Missouri, although we are a very small but global nonprofit. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the Yield Lab Institute before I talk to you about Cultivar and the importance of global ecosystem connectivity to unlock innovation. So at the Yield Lab Institute, we've been around since 2017. We are here to enable entrepreneurs to revolutionize food systems. And even back in 2017, the founders of the Yield Lab Institute were talking about the importance of connecting global ecosystems. So that's our mission. I've only been at the Institute for about 5 months. The first time I came here, which was 1 year ago, for a conference, Opera Seed. Most of you probably know of Opera Seed, but I came to Rio Cuarto on that trip for the very first time. And I got to see a lot of things here in your beautiful city and meet a lot of people, and that's why I'm back here. And so I also want to chat just a little bit about the family that we call the Yield Lab. So the institute where I work is a nonprofit. which means that we operate not for profit. We are an NGO or a non-governmental organization, but we hang with, or we are in a family with, the Yield Lab family of funds. Some of you might know the Yield Lab LATAM. They were the original people who thought of this ecosystem building thing that eventually became Cultivar, which I'll talk about. But there's also the Yield Lab Asia Pacific and the Yield Lab Europe. And so together, those funds represent a very powerful collective of investment in ag tech around the globe. Why am I here? I am here because Jorge and Federico and Alvaro and a little company called Seed Matrice came to St. Louis 3 years ago, and they told me about a place called Rio Cuarto. I am here because the Agencia Innovar y Emprender and the governor of Cordoba and 35 leaders from your region came to St. Louis in June of this year. Most importantly, I am here because Fernanda asked me to be here, and I couldn't say no to her. But really, I'm here because you all are building something very special here. You may not know it because you're in it, but there's an energy here, there's a momentum here, there are some incredibly forward-thinking people here, and what you are building here is very special, and frankly, I want to be part of it. So what is this thing I keep mentioning, Cultivar? Several years ago, the Yield Lab LATAM started bringing people, ecosystem people, and companies to St. Louis because that organization believed that if the companies they invest in eventually want to have a US presence, that St. Louis would be the great place for them to land. So they started bringing organizations to St. Louis. And it occurred to us that we have a lot of similarities, right? The Midwest in the United States, where St. Louis is literally in the middle of, our cropping systems are very similar, right? Corn, maize, soybeans, soya. So our systems are very similar. We had a lot to learn from each other. And so after a couple of years, there was a momentum to that. And it finally needed a name, and we call it Cultivar. And so the purpose of Cultivar, there are actually many purposes of Cultivar, but at the end of the day, we are seeking to increase connectivity in order to catalyze partnerships between St. Louis and Latin America, but really the Americas broadly, right? So how do we connect farmers to other farmers? How do we connect researchers to startups? How do we connect corporate strategics to startups and other ideas? How do we connect investors into all of this? So it's about connectivity, it's about creating a knowledge network, but it's also about creating very meaningful and specific partnerships that can help move the needle in terms of ag tech innovation. We also want to support the creation and expansion of ecosystems across Latin America. Why would we want to do that? Why would we care if places like Rio Cuarto thrive? Well, none of us are going to fix the problems that we face in terms of the need for increased food security and the need to better mitigate climate challenges. None of us can do this alone. St. Louis, Missouri, we do a lot of great stuff there. We can't do it alone. Buenos Aires, Rosario, Rio Cuarto, Piracicaba in Brazil, Tec de Monterrey in Mexico City, none of us can do this alone, right? And so we need to be better connected, and we need other ecosystems with very localized solutions to thrive. We want to promote the development of localized solutions, right? So what works in this part of Argentina, central Argentina, may not work in the middle of the United States. We want to be able to find tools and to promote tools and technologies and startups and companies that can be successful in these different regions. And then finally, how do we build talent, or how can we support talent in all of these different regions? We want people to be able to stay in their home cities if they want to, or stay on farms if they want to. Someone this morning told me that here in Argentina, your young people are going into agriculture. You know what? That's not happening in the United States. On my own family farm, none of the grandchildren will be going home to the farm. There's only 4 of us, but none of us will be going home to the farm. So this is Cultivar. This is Cultivar, though, to me. So I have found work that I truly care about, and that is mainly because I have found people who are truly amazing to work with. When I landed in Rio Cuarto last year, 1 year ago, it was 10 o'clock at night, and I knew that, I think Juan Nafia with Pampa Start, I think I knew Juan was picking me up. But instead, when I got to the airport, this is who welcomed me, with a jersey from Argentina for my daughter, who is a football player. In fact, when she was younger, they used to call her Mini Messi. So it was very special. So this is what Cultivar means to me. The photo on the far right is the delegation that was in St. Louis in June. So while Cultivar is in fact about advancing innovation, it is also about people. It is also about creating family. So Cultivar by the numbers so far, and I want to say that Cultivar is gaining momentum in places like this and in lots of places around Latin America, but it is still a movement. There are still a lot of things we need to do and we can do. But to this point, people from all of these countries have participated in some kind of Cultivar convening. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that they signed up for a newsletter or they shared their WhatsApp with me. It means they actually spent their time and money to come to a convening, whether that was in Brazil or Argentina or St. Louis or somewhere else. They showed up because they thought it was valuable to meet other like-minded people to see what is possible. So these numbers are pretty powerful. These are some of the areas of interest that actually, after the Opera Seed Congress last year, we had a Cultivar convening. Several of you were there. These are some of the areas that we're going to be thinking about in terms of focus for the themes of Cultivar, right? So farmer engagement. And I'd like to drill in on farmer engagement just a little bit, but sustainability, regenerative agriculture, biologicals, these are all things that we have in common that we all desperately need in terms of giving farmers the tools they need to be successful. I'm going to chat just a little bit about the St. Louis ecosystem, and I want to say again that we're very proud of what we've done in St. Louis, but we still have a long way to go. We still need to evolve, and we have a lot to learn, including from folks in this room. This is a busy slide, and I apologize for that. But really, I just show this slide to signal that over 25 years, which is how long we've been investing in this ecosystem in this way, over the course of 25 years, we built a lot of these things. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of strategy and vision and intention and, frankly, funding. It took a lot of believers and builders. We always had access to market, that far right column. We were always within 500 miles of 80% of the nation's corn and soybeans and 50% of total production. We always had those headquarters, National Corn Growers, American Soybean Association, and others. But I would argue that we're not leveraging them near to the ability that we should be, and near as much as you all, right? One of the very special things about the cluster ag tech movement is how many farmers are engaged. Truly impressive. I want to talk about the fact that no one entity is an ecosystem. So in St. Louis, we have a brand new innovation district called 39 North. I actually helped launch it many years ago. Very, very proud of that organization. The Yield Lab Institute is a member. I'm a big fan of what we're doing there. And I also want to recognize that 39 North is not the St. Louis ecosystem. It's one proof point of what we're building. And so I only want to make that point because Cluster Ag Tech and the partners that pulled this off, it's amazing. You have to have these convening bodies, right? And Cluster Ag Tech can play that role, and Cluster Ag Tech can also not build an ecosystem on their own. And so I just want to make that point that it still takes everybody, as fantastic as this event has been this week. These are just some of the organizations in St. Louis that are part of the ecosystem, right? So there's public organizations here, there's government organizations here, there's companies here, there's investors here, there's other nonprofits like Gates Ag One, which is a division of the Gates Foundation. Our civic organizations are represented here. It takes some combination of those things. It also takes everybody kind of speaking about it in the same message. So something that's happened over 25 years that we don't even realize we do anymore is that we all talk alike. It's kind of annoying. In fact, I think when the Seed Matrice team came several years ago, they thought we had been programmed like as robots because we all kind of talk the same about what's going on in St. Louis. Well, that just happens the longer that you do this. I mentioned that we were in the heart of the heartland, and so had this proximity to all of these growers and all of this cropland. And it is true, and those organizations represent a lot of growers and even U.S. farmers and ranchers, so a lot of beef producers represented in some of these organizations. And when I think about where there can be a two-way street here in terms of learning, we have so much to learn from how you all engage with farmers, from how you all have farmers at the table at the beginning of these conversations as it relates to innovation. At the end of the day, if we are not creating tools that farmers will use, what are we doing? What are we doing? And so we have this amazing asset in St. Louis, Missouri of these organizations, and yet we're not leveraging that. So to me, something that inspires me and something I would really like to work with you all on is how can we be better at that in the United States, and then clearly, if there's any learnings we can share with you. But I definitely see a place where we have a lot to learn from you all. So I pose this question as I wrap up my comments here. Is Rio Cuarto the heart of ag in Argentina? Can it be? We say in St. Louis that we're the heart of the heartland. We think we're the center of all things ag tech. Can that be true about Argentina here in Rio Cuarto? Well, I can tell you, if energy and momentum means anything, the answer could be yes, and I hope to be part of that. I really wish I could make this formal announcement with more clarity today, but I'm thrilled to let you know that next month, on September 10th, my organization, the Yield Lab Institute, will be announcing a very large program that will advance startups across the globe. It used to be a United States-only opportunity. We are launching it internationally. It's not public yet, but the partner we are choosing to work with here in Argentina to feed startups into that system is Cluster Agtech. And I couldn't be happier about that. Again, I wish I could give you more information today, but it will be coming. I also am very committed to working with the agency and others on what it could look like to from the United States to home base here in Rio Cuarto. So I hope that that's coming as well. I am really excited to be here, like I started. I'm also really excited to say this is not the last time you'll see me. I hope this might be the last time I speak, that there won't be some amount of Spanish that I'm able to use. But I would love for us to build something together. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great rest of the conference.
Gran aplauso para Stephanie Regagnon. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí, una de las presencias internacionales que tenemos en esta jornada Agtech Río Cuarto 2025. La foto antes de la partida, ahí está. Muchas gracias a Stephanie por ser parte también de esta semana Agtech Río Cuarto 2025.